Hey, Mr. MiyagiStyle. Happy Saturday, everybody. I've got my hat on today because it's hat day. No, I haven't taken a shower yet, so I gotta wear my hat. This is gonna be a neat segment, something different. As you can see by the cover, I've been working on this project for a while, and I've been trying to kind of putting the pieces together. And I finally got everything done, and I'm ready to go. I leave 2 weeks for my next dive trip, which is in Dominican Republic again. And I want to be able to use this and get into sort of that entry level, intermediate macro photography. And for me, I've been kind of looking at this for a while now, and I just didn't want to spend the money because if you ever research into macro photography, the hardware is not cheap. There's a couple of very popular, very good macro photography systems that I've seen people use. I dive with divers, and I've seen them using their phenomenal products. First and foremost, we all know, if you haven't heard of the company called Sea Life, they actually are big camera company that focuses on no pun intended, focuses on macro photography. And their gear is phenomenal. Like I've worked with their gear, and it's just gorgeous, but hefty price tag, unfortunately. You know, this is not a cheap hobby, guys, by any means. Even with action cameras and regular photography cameras, that kind of thing, they're not cheap hobbies. And I've spent lots of money on action cameras, right? I've got so many action cameras, I lost count. The only problem with Sea Life is that it's not a versatile camera in terms of if I'm out at a resort and I'm diving and I'm doing macro photography, I want to be able to take my camera outside of diving and use it in other environments. You know, whether it's on the beach, the pool, snorkeling, that kind of thing. And the Sea Life is not really a camera that you can do that with. And I'm sure lots of people say differently, but you know, for one thing, if you look at their cameras, they're actually quite bulky camera because they're waterproof cameras right off the bat. They're designed for deep waterproofing, so there is no camera that you put into a housing or what have you, right? So it's a bulky item to be carrying around with you on the beach, and for the price of those things, I really don't want to carry that around the beach. You know, if it gets stolen or broken or lost or whatever, right? But as a macro photography camera, they're phenomenal. Video and not the greatest. And it's the same with the TG series, the Olympus. And the Olympus series is probably the least expensive camera that you can get into macro photography with. And I had the TG6. Macro photography, phenomenal. You can have that interchangeable lens as well. Other than that, again, as a water, and that's actually a more versatile camera because it's also a waterproof camera you can use on a beach and that kind of thing. But it's not a cheap camera either. The price of a TG6 is actually more expensive than an action camera or a TG7. Both excellent cameras. I actually ended up returning my TG6 because as an all-around camera, macro photography is excellent, but it fails everywhere else. As a still, takes decent stills, but as a video, as a 4K camera, it cannot compete with these action cameras. Just stabilization, that kind of stuff, right? And resolution, and the amount of things that you can do with an action camera, because an action camera is designed for video, okay? Whereas the TG6 is designed for still. So two very different categories. So it's kind of apples and oranges, and I don't want to compare the two. It has its strong points, has its weak points. Anyways, I don't want to take too long with this because there's actually 3 other segments to this video. There's going to be a segment where I show you what I did with my rig and what the things that I had to build and what you can do, and go into cheap options to make this rig more economical. And then there's another option where I show you some tips and tricks of underwater shooting with the Ace Pro. This is strictly on the Ace Pro, guys. And then at the end of the segment, there'll be samples, out of water samples that I've done with this lens, the macro lens. And I suspect it won't be much different underwater other than the lighting because it's a wet lens that's designed to be underwater. So we'll see in 2 weeks how it turns out. Hopefully I'll have great success. The amount of time I put in this, I better have some good success. But it's looking good so far in terms of out of water macro photography. And if you can't, you can always use it as an underwater macro camera. And you know that it shoots amazing, and you'll see at the end. I'll let you be the judge. If there's any questions about building this rig, what I use, what I designed, what I printed, just drop me a comment at the bottom, guys. I'll be happy to answer your question. The reason why I'm doing this because I wanted to get into something more economical, okay? I almost pulled the trigger on getting the TG7 with the housing, the light, everything. Canada, if you don't understand, in Canada here, for me to get into TG6 or TG7, I would go to TG7 just because it's a later model, right? They still sell both of them, and they're both excellent cameras. The TG7 here is about $700, okay? Just the camera alone, okay? The TG7 housing is another $500. Right off the bat, you're at $1,300 with taxes and everything, right? Now, that's just the housing and the camera. Now you need a tray, and I have a tray already, and now you need a light, right? If you're starting fresh, for me, it's a little bit cheaper, but if you're starting fresh and you have nothing, you don't have a tray, you don't have a light, nothing like that, if you want to go economy, tray, and light, you're going to spend probably another $200 on top of the TG7 and the housing, okay? If you want to get into a good lighting, and good tray like the Sea Life, you can actually buy the Sea Life tray and a light, a Dragon light, which is an excellent light. I would love to have that light, but you know, at a $700 price tag, I'll see how this one works. If I don't have any luck, I'll maybe invest in the Sea Life light, the Dragon light. I love the Dragon. I've worked with the Dragon light. I was at a dive in July, and one of my dive friends had that gig. She had a TG6 housing, the tray, and the Dragon light from Sea Life, and it was gorgeous. But by the time, if you incorporate those 4 pieces, you're looking at a $2,000 rig right off the bat, right? I did this because I wanted to use my Ace Pro that I bring with me anyways, and I wanted to use it in a different way. I wanted to extend the usage of this camera, and I think it's there. I think it has the technology and a power to do so, and I've proved it here, right? And I've already got most of the parts. All I had to do was basically, the only thing I had to buy was a trigger, a couple mounts, and then I bought a new. I have a lighter. I just bought a new light because I wanted the red light. My old light doesn't have the red light, and the light set me back $80, and the trigger was $30. So all in all, I already had the dive housing. I had 2 cameras already. I had the tray already. I've been using a tray for a while. I use it for a different system. Most of the stuff, I bought a couple mounts, which was $10. So the whole thing set me back about $120 to build this system, right? The lens was the most expensive part. And you're going to have, and I find the lens a little bit better on this one than the TG6. This is a wet lens. It's a plus 18 diopter lens. It's a macro lens. It's a gorgeous lens, and it's heavy. It's all glass, right? This is where your cost is going to be a little bit higher. You can buy different types of. You can buy cheap diopter lenses, or you can buy expensive ones, and the results will be the results will be in the quality of your photo at the end of the day. And I've tested diopter lens quality, like just a cheap one lens diopter. And I've tested it against this one. It's a huge difference. Like, this is just all glass, right? Now the lens will set you back probably, if you get a good macro lens and a plus 13, plus 16, plus 18, or there's a plus 24, you're looking probably anywhere from about $300 Canadian. I'm telling, it's all Canadian, anywhere from $300 to $600. Okay, but I like the fact that I can take this lens and I can use it on my SLR. Right, on my other cameras. It's just not dedicated to this system. I have this camera that's shooting it's a Sony Alpha mirrorless camera, and I can take this lens and put it on there and shoot macro with that, and it's gonna look. I haven't done it yet, but I can't wait. I think after this, I'm gonna do some testing on that camera, and it's gonna look phenomenal. This camera is unbelievable. That said, I actually ended up getting a good deal on those lenses. I have a local dealer that deals with underwater photography, and I know the guys really well. And this is actually a rebranded lens. It's actually a Kraken lens. Kraken makes dive housings for cameras and for cell phones. And I have one of their housing. That's why I went to this company. They do wet lenses. They do underwater lights, and their stuff is pretty good quality. When I went to get, I was looking at a plus 16 lens, no, plus 13 lens, and I really liked it. It was okay. It's a cheaper lens, and then he said, well, I've got this lens. It's discontinued, but there's nothing wrong with it, and it's actually a rebrand. I don't know if you guys heard of a brand called WeFine, right? They're a Chinese brand. They do a lot of underwater housings, lenses, and stuff like that, wet lenses, and this is a rebranded version of one of their lenses. I'll drop a link down there, and it's the WeFine brand, but it's identical. They just changed the label and the model number of it. It's the exact same lens. And if you can still buy that WeFine lens, I think it's retailed at 400 US, around there. I got a stupid deal. I ended up buying it for 220 bucks Canadian. So he gave me I think he gave it to me at cost, because it was discontinued, right? So then I got a sweet deal. And you can find deals like that. Look for used lenses. There's tons of them out there. If you can get yourself a good macro lens, everybody should have a macro lens, whether it's for their regular camera or underwater camera. It's a great investment. You'll see the results of the photos, and what this camera, the Ace Pro, pumped out. I'm actually really quite surprised that the quality of the Ace Pro, the quality of the pictures came out of the Ace Pro, and I think you'll think the same. I've given it to several of my friends, dive friends, who are, they have TG6s, they have C Live. They're like, that's really good. Which camera was it? And I told them they couldn't believe it. They didn't believe me. But anyways, that said, we'll move on. I don't want to make this one too long because I have two other segments that's gonna bore the heck out of you. Just know that this is gonna be a longer segment again. There was a lot of work put into this. This is my final rendition of the camera tray, guys, and I'm gonna explain to you. And then I'm not gonna say anything about it right now. The next video will explain in detail, close up of what I did to this rig. And I can't wait to put this out in a test. It's going to be awesome. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Take a look at sample. Let me know what you guys think, guys. And guys, I know there's going to be people that, well, would you want to use that for macro? Guys, just give it a break. I don't want to hear that. I wanted to do this so that we can expand the use of an action camera. And you don't have to do this with the Ace Pro. You can do this with probably a GoPro or an DJI Action 4. The only thing I liked about I think this will shine better than the other cameras, is that clarity zoom. And you're going to see why that clarity zoom plays a huge part of this macro shooter. And I think that's why you're seeing this kind of quality sample that I'm putting at the end of this video. Cool. Hey guys, check this out. Check this out. Check this out. Check this out. Look at what I bought. Oh! It's retractable sunglasses for my hat. I wear a hat, so I wear a hat at the resort all the time when I'm at the resort, because my hair is all goofy and I'm in and out of water all the time, so I have a hat on. And I have these sunglasses that I never know where to put. I'm losing it. I'm leaving it on the chair by the pool. I've broken them. I've lost them in the water and the beach and stuff like that. So this is awesome. And it was only $7. So now I have a thing that I'll never lose because it's attached to my visor of my head. It just flips down. But anyways, I had to throw that in. I didn't get it for free. I paid for it. $7. AliExpress. There you go. Go get it. The other thing I want to announce, hopefully in a couple weeks, I'll have something really cool for you guys to see. Nothing to do with camera or Ace Pro or Insta360. I don't know if you guys have heard the launch. They're launching the new Hover X. You know, that little selfie drone that I have that flies and follows you. Well, there's 2 new models coming out, and you guys should check. I'll drop a link at the bottom. I know I'm just kind of throwing this in, but I'm really excited. I'm gonna pick up. There's 2 models: a Pro and there's a Pro Max. They've completely revamped this drone. It's still the same size, still foldable, but the camera is like unbelievable. It's now a 4K camera. It shoots 60 frames. The Pro Max shoots 8K, 30 frames. It's 10-bit. It's got all sorts of, like, this thing's insane. So it's launching on Monday on Indiegogo, which they did in the first camera. And if you go on their link on Monday, you get a discounted price. I'm gonna probably buy the Pro only. I don't think I want to buy it. It's $200 difference, and it's still quite a bit. I'll take a look and see. I would love to have that 8K and that 10-bit though. But I think 4K for a thing like this, I think 4K is the 2.7K is awesome on that camera, on that drone that I have. Like, it's crystal clear. You guys have seen samples of it. Now it's going to be 8 or 4 and 8K. And the Pro Max is 10-bit. That's crazy stuff, man. They have all sorts of new sensors. They have detection sensors now, which the other one didn't really have. And the new one will also be able to fly over water and snow, which the original one cannot. So they've revamped this, and it looks really nice. It's not touch buttons; it's got screen on it now. It's pretty cool. So, anyways, if you guys get a chance, take a peek at it. I'm gonna order it on Monday, and hopefully get it, and I'll do a review on the Pro. I won't have the. I wish they could send me the Pro Max to test out, but I'm not spending the money. It's $200 difference. It's not cheap, these things. Anyways, guys, enjoy. Have a good one. Enjoy the rest of the video. Enjoy the sample. Again, drop me a comment at the bottom if you have any questions, and let me know what you guys think. I think this is going to be really good. I think we just pushed a little bit more what we can do with this camera, and to have this. And if I'm out 2 weeks and I get some amazing macro photography out of this camera, out of this Ace Pro, man, we just extended the use of this camera even further. And if you have that camera, the setup is not expensive. You don't have to go and buy a new system and haul along a new camera with you. You just have to bring the tray, the housing, the light, put the camera in, do your settings, and go and shoot macro. So that's the point of this video, guys. Have a good one. Respect. Have a good weekend. Bye. All right, guys. Here we go. Don't have to look at my face for a few minutes anyways. So you'll see all this mess here. I've got a couple things will be taken out. So I've got 3 housings here, 3 different waterproof housings. And you'll see in the front here. And one is by A Magazine, one is the OEM one, which is in the middle, and the other one is just a generic one. I think it's a Poulet's one, or it's a Telesin one. You can buy these relatively cheap. This one was, I think, probably the most expensive third party because it doesn't have the finger tabs on them. It uses the quick lock, which I like and I don't like. I'm not sure for underwater use that would be a good thing. I just prefer to have something that's more physical, thumb screwed in for underwater, just in case you hit it, it pops off and that kind of thing. Granted that all of my housings are tethered, and they do. The nice thing about waterproof housings is on the corners of the waterproof housing, even on the OEM ones, there's actually a tether loop. So you can make sure you tether everything. I've lost, I actually lost an action camera years ago because I didn't tether it properly. So just to prevent that kind of thing, and it does, accidents do happen. If you lose it, you're not losing a camera. It just swings and it just hangs on your tray. And I'll show you how I tethered this onto the camera tray. Now, with all of these, this is the OEM one that I'll be using mainly for the macro shooter. And then I'm gonna have a secondary one, which will be the Telesin housing, and I'll show you how I put it together. So basically, this is all in pieces. This is how I travel with the product. And I'll bring all 3 of these housing with me, and every one of these housings have a adapter. This is the adapter I actually designed for the camera, and it goes from the housing to the 62 millimeter macro lens that I have here. Okay. I designed this in a way that there's a couple things from doing this underwater a lot, I'm kind of looking for things, safety, tethering system, make sure that it's on there so it doesn't pop off. You know, these are plastic, and I'll probably release these, especially the OEM one. I'm not sure if I'm going to sell it, if I want to just offer it for free. It's just a piece of plastic. If you have a printer, you can print it on. I might just sell it on the calls for like $5 or buy me a coffee or whatever, right? I actually redesigned, because every one of these housings have different size lens guards on them. So I had to design 3 different ones. The top threading is the same, just the fitting is differently, right? And you'll see that there's 2 loops and there's 2 yellow things here. So what I did was, when you put plastic in, fitted in, whether it's aluminum or plastic, I just prefer plastic just because it's salt water and I don't have to deal with another metal part. There's enough metal in here that I have to always rinse out with salt water and put it in fresh water and put it in a freshwater soup, right? So just plastic, I don't have to worry about that. I printed these in PETG. You can do it in ABS. I'm not a big fan of ABS. I just find ABS more brittle. PETG seems to be kind of in between PLA and ABS. PETG, if you don't know what I'm talking about, PETG is a type of plastic for 3D printing, and PETG actually is UV rated. So that means that it can withstand high heat, not like super hot, but like if I'm in a tropical, under the sun, that kind of thing, it won't warp or it won't misshapen and it won't melt. Whereas PLA, regular PLA, they have a very low tolerance for UV or heat. So if I have my PLA out in the sun, it will actually soften and warp. And you don't want that to happen with these adapters. Whereas PETG has a higher heat tolerance. And it's also a little bit stronger than PLA as well. So for outdoor use, PETG or ABS will be your best bet. Most stuff that you buy accessory-wise are usually ABS material. They're very strong. And you'll see the loopholes on each of these adapters. The loopholes, and I'll show you what the loopholes are for later on as I mount it onto my tray. The two yellow things are screws. I actually designed these little screw knobs, and I put I think you can buy like what do you call it, M6 screws or M5 screws through it. So what it basically does is you'll see them on both sides. I only need one, but I just have both just to keep it from teeter-tottering. When I mount this on here, now it pops off. It's sitting there pretty snug. I don't think it's gonna pop off underwater just because of the water pressure. But just in case, so these screws basically allow me to tighten screws in to the, now you gotta be careful, you don't want to over tighten because this is metal against plastic, right? What I did was I actually put, if you look at this one, I don't know if you guys can see it, you'll see a little red thing inside, the little hole where the screw comes out. It's actually a piece of, oh, it just popped out. It's actually a little piece of TPU, like silicone. So when I'm tightening it, I'm not gonna damage the plastic on my housing, okay? And I did it before. You see a little bit of a scratch. As long as you don't over tighten, you don't want to crack this plastic. If you crack it, then it's done, right? So basically what the screw does is it ensures that this ring stays in there. Once I tighten a little bit, and if I feel a little bit of like tightness, a little pressure, that means it's touching that plastic and it's actually mounted on it. So there's no way this is going to come out if I pull it, right? So it ensures that this adapter stays in, because the lens on here, the macro lens, is quite heavy. When you put it on, you want this thing to pop right out, right? So that's the reason why those screws are there. Some thought was put in. There was a lot of, I did a lot of revisions, and I finally got it to the design that I want, and it seems to be working really well. The test will be in the water. So I'm gonna put this aside. So I'm going to put these two aside. These are the backups I have. I'm going to keep this one because I'm going to use this one as well. Anyways, you'll see a bunch of stuff here. The tray system. I have an old tray system right here that I've been using for years and years. It's cheap. You can buy these off Amazon. It's like 50 bucks. And it's a two-handle tray. Basically, you get these two handles, and you get a tray, and it's adjustable on a horizontal basis, right? Now, I had the camera on the tray in the front here, and you have to kind of use M6 screws and just mount the camera mounts on it so you can put your camera on here. And you'll see that I've mounted one at the bottom. You'll see why. One on the side looks kind of different. I'll show you why. And there's one at the very front. This is the main guy right here. This is the main macro shooter right here, right? And I've screwed everything, and I've capped everything off with TPU caps so that I don't, because ends of screws are relatively sharp. And this just protects it from scraping against something or cutting anything, right? And this is adjustable. I've got it all the way through, and I've got a, of course, handle on the bottom here. For me to put this together, what I did was, if you guys looked at my original photo, there was two handles like this on here, right? It was relatively wide, and I had two cameras facing this way. Now, it was okay. I didn't like it for one. I was like playing around with it. First of all, it's heavy because you have this extra handle. These are about 210 grams right here, weight on here. So you have two of these on each side. It was a little heavy, and it was also bulky too. It was like this long by the time I had two cameras on there. And I didn't like that. When you're diving, you want to reduce as much bulk and reduce as much weight as you can. Just because you're holding onto this thing, you're diving with it, you're hanging onto it. That's what this is for, is to hang on to, so I can just hang it instead of holding on to it. And I've done big camera trays underwater, and after a while it gets a little tiresome holding on, because this whole rig is anywhere from 4 to 6 pounds that you're holding on to. And what I did was I added a piece to this, and the reason why I added this front tongue, I had an old piece of metal from a bow cable rod, and it was attached to this plate. And I saw this plate, oh, that's kind of neat. It's got the perfect holes for it. And I just cut the back of it and mounted on this, and it works perfectly. So what this does is it pushes my camera up forward a little bit, and I'll tell you why I did that. And once I mount it on here, and you'll see why. So that allows me to take this piece out, so I don't have to mount this piece. So this is heavier than this plate right here. So I reduce a little bit of weight, reduce a little bit of bulk. So we're gonna throw that away. Won't use that. And I'll show you what I did. I'm just gonna mount it right now for you. This is how I travel with it. It'll be in pieces like this in my carry-on, and this trigger will probably come off of this rod because it kind of sticks out a little bit. Basically, once I get it back to, or get it to the resort, I'm gonna mount this guy. Where is? After this segment, there's going to be a video of the settings I use for my Ace Pro, and how I got some tips and tricks on how to shoot underwater. And there's some very important things that you need to know with the Ace Pro in macro, and I'll show you. And it took me a while to find this out, and I accidentally found out a couple tricks too that you could do. Once it's mounted, this tray looks like this, and that's it. This is the tray, right? And we have 2 brackets, or 2 mounts. We have one for the forward macro shooter, which is right here for the camera, and one for the side. And I've revised this as well, and I'll show you why. And it's kind of a weird mount. It rods over in this little knob. Basically what I did was I had an old bicycle mount way back, and it was aluminum. And this is a handlebar rail. There's another piece that goes over the handlebar, and it sits like a handlebar, and this sits in front, and the camera goes on top. The one thing I liked about this, and I looked at it, I go, okay, if you looked at my original picture, I had one camera pointing this way, and I had the video camera pointing, which is fine. I just shoot this way video, right? But I thought, okay, well, wait a minute. What if I can change that? And I found this mount. You can buy these. They're cheap. They're like $10. And they're aluminum. And I want aluminum. I'm trying to stay away from plastic mounts, just because I'm underwater. If it breaks, I'm screwed, right? So everything is pretty much aluminum. I found this and I thought, oh, this is neat. Can I find a way to mount it? And I took the bracket off, and the bracket actually fits perfectly across this way. You'll see. And the reason why I'm doing this is because it's a rotating mount. So if I unscrew the bottom, I can actually rotate this 360 degrees. So that gives me an idea that I can rotate my left video camera. This side is for video only for the Ace Pro. I can shoot this way, I can shoot this way, I can shoot this way. I can even do a selfie of me when I'm shooting. So I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. So I mount it perfectly, and I'll show you how it works. And you just turn it, and you just tighten it, and it stays that angle. A little tip, if you find one of these, or if you want to get one, they're cheap. They're bicycle swivel mounts, and they're aluminum. I think they're on Amazon. They're about 10 to 15 bucks. This is not expensive. This was a seat mount for a bicycle, because I wanted something that was adjustable, has a wide ring so you can adjust it back and forth, and I wanted something that's high up. Most of the mounts that you see, my original mount was this red one, and it was low. And it's nice to have a low, but I'd rather have it high up, just because of the thumb screw. It's a little easier to access when it's higher up than it is when it's low down. So I put one down here, and I'll show you why I did that one. There's 3 mounts, one in the front, side, and one at the bottom. Okay. This is my trigger, and it's already adjusted, and the ball mount on the top right, and that's used for the light. For external accessories. I'm gonna start mounting this. I'll probably just fast forward this for you guys. I'm gonna mount the first one, which is going to be the OEM. Just put this in here. I don't need this. This is not. I just bring these just in case that if this breaks or leaks or whatever, I can switch over to this as a front macro shooter, and that's why I made the ring, so I can use the same macro lens in the ring. So I'm just put this aside. All right, this is the. Everybody's asking what kind of lens this is. This is a macro lens. This is what they call a diopter, or close-up, or macro lens. It's all the same thing. It's called it differently. It's a +18. You go up to +24, I think. There's a couple people using the plus 24. I like the plus 18 because the bigger the diopter is, the closer you have to be to the subject to get a clear focus photo. Underwater, it's a little difficult because you don't want to get too close to the subject, because sometimes they'll scare it away, or sometimes they're actually quite dangerous. Like, you know, if you're shooting a stonefish or a lionfish, they're poisonous, right? So you don't want to get stung. That's another reason why I did this plate at the front, and I'll tell you why. And you'll see when I mount it on here. It's a great lens. This thing is heavy. It's just all glass. You can buy the cheap single lens diopters, or the ones you can buy for 50 bucks. They don't work as well and they're not as clear. This whole thing is just glass, right? So it's a wet lens, so it's designed to be used underwater, and it's tolerant to environments like salt water, fresh water, chlorine, that kind of stuff, right? So that's what this is for. The point of focus on this is 3 inches. It's about 3 inches. So I know the distance to my subject. It's about 3 inches where it's at its optimal focus range. And that's what you need to know. That's one of the tricks that you need to know, especially with this camera, because the Ace Pro, most of the macro cameras that you see out there, like the Olympus Tough, the TG667 series, the Sea Life cameras, they're great cameras, don't get me wrong, guys, but they're not cheap cameras. By the time you're done with your whole setup and gear and housing and tray and light and everything, you're getting expensive. The reason why I'm doing this, I built this system at an economical price, and because I already have the camera, so I wanted to utilize that camera, right? I almost went out and bought the whole rig for the Olympus TG6, TG7 with the housing and the tray and the light. By the time I'm done, I did my math, by the time I'm done building the Olympus, I'm looking at $2,000 almost in Canadian price, right? I built this at a fraction of a price. Anyways, it's all glass. You want to get yourself if you're going to do macro shooting, get yourself a good, you know, macro lens, because, you know, if you've been in the camera photography field in as many years as I've been in, majority of your camera quality comes from this guy, and that's why you'll see lenses that are like $2,000, $3,000, $10,000, $15,000, right? Because the quality of your photo is through the optics. Without good optics, you can have a $10,000 camera. It's useless. You gotta have the glass, okay? So that's where this comes in. Anyways, I got this at a good price. Normally this thing sells for about $400 or $500 Canadian. I ended up picking it up for 220 bucks. So shh, you didn't hear that from me. Anyways, that's that. I have my light, okay? This is the light that I bought actually from Amazon. It's actually a really good light. It's got multi-mode. It's got floods. It's got wide angle. It's even got red light. It's even got a UV light, which, you know, I don't know what you use UV light for. Underwater. Look for body fluids underwater. Ooh, gross. The ball mount, the clamp. And these are the accessories I'll show you in a second. These are just little parts that I'll be bringing with me, okay? So I'll mount this right now. I'll probably fast forward. You can watch me mount it if you want. You can fast forward if you want. This is the main shooter right here. This is my macro shooter. It's gonna sit in the front, okay? On the front here. And I've got the finger. Bring lots of these. Always bring extra ones because they break, they rust, etc. You lose them, blah, 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 blah. Before I do this, my cameras are here. I have two Ace Pros, and I've got an M on one label, and I don't have another label for that. The reason why I did this is set up for a macro shooting, and I'll tell you why in a minute. There's going to be another video showing you why I use this as a macro shooter, okay? Because there's settings that you need to keep on there. You can't change the settings, especially for underwater use. Let's mount this guy in here. It's in. The reason why is because you put it in is because when you tighten this under this trigger, you can't open the lid because this tab won't come up because of the trigger. You have to unscrew the trigger. So I'd rather do it this way and just be done with it. So, and you just line up, the trigger's already set. So this is when you pull the trigger, it automatically activates the shutter or the on and off record button. That's one. So number two. So I'll just put this in right now. Camera in here. See tethers coming out of my camera, and I'll show you how to mount those ones. I had to play around with the tether system so they don't get tangled when I'm jumping in the water. Makes a big difference. All right, so that's what these things are. I bought these things and I trimmed them. They're reusable zip ties, okay? Meaning that when you tighten them in, you can actually undo them by, there's a little tab that press it, you can undo them, which is nice because I use these for the tethers. And I'll do that at the end when I put the lens on. I can do this one in. So this one I just slip through here. I don't know if you can see it. And my tether goes in here. I use a very strong nylon thread, and they don't break. Very hard to break these. And I just tether it, and I just singe it, and I just tuck it on the side. And now this one is tethered. So if this, for any reason, this breaks or whatever, it's not going to because of aluminum. This will stay on my tray. Okay, so it just hangs there. So I'm not losing a camera. I'd rather have it hanging than lose a camera, right? Tighten this up. Up. All right, so that's one. I'll tether this after I put the lens on. Now we're gonna do the lens, and I'll do the rest of it last. So the lens, my little silicone thing fell out here. I'm gonna put the lens on. So the lens is screws basically on. The shock cord's at the bottom. I'm just gonna screw this in. This thing's not going to come out. This thing is, there's actually, when you buy this lens, there's actually a converter ring on here. And that gets screwed into my adapter. It's easy for me just to screw this in and screw it in the plastic. Once this adapter's in that plastic, it's in there pretty tight. It's not going to come out. Lens goes in. And it goes in here. Tether at the bottom. Okay. Once I've got this in here, fit it, I just tighten very lightly the yellow screws, thumb screws that I designed. But once you feel the bit of tightness, right about here, it's touching that frame of the housing, right about here. Don't over tighten it, because if you over tighten, you're gonna break. You're gonna cut right into that plastic frame. You break it, right? The aluminum adapters have the same idea, but you have to use like a Allen key or screwdriver, and I'd rather I can just do it. I don't have to go messing around find an Allen key to tighten it. I did this because I can just use my fingers to do it and then tighten it and take it out. So this is not coming out. It's in there pretty good. With me jumping in the water, the worst part with this system is you want to make sure everything's intact, because the initial jump in the water is where you're going to see a lot of force hitting this thing, the water, because you're holding this thing and you're basically taking a dive into the water with this. So you don't want stuff flying off the camera. I've seen it done. People don't have it tightened, or this thing flies right off and it's going down. You got to go look for it underneath the bottom of the water. That's done. So that's in. I have a lens tether and I also have a camera tether. Important for me, I'm a big tether guy. I lost my camera once and I won't do it again. Basically does is, for me to do this is, again, same zip tie. I'm gonna do it back here. I have a whole bunch of holes I can put the zip tie. It doesn't really matter where I do it. As long as I zip tie, I'll do it this way so you can see. So the lens loop goes in to the zip tie and the camera goes in to the zip tie. This is just basically insurance. It's a tethering system that allows me to, if something happens and if it comes off the mount for whatever reason, I'm still secured onto my tray. I'm not gonna lose my tray because the tray is on my hand. It's not coming, it's not leaving me. This guy right here, this loop, what I've done here is this loop to again, as a backup, to ensure I've looped it over, and there's another, on the top here, there's another circle. You take the loop, it's shock cord, so it's stretchable, and I just do it and tie it on here. Basically keeps my lens and adapter inside. It pulls it back. It's like a seatbelt, basically. And if it gets in your way, and the only thing that gets in your way when you take it full, not a big deal. It's only a string, right? If you can't do without it, just loop it over and just move it on the side. Then you can see your screen. It still keeps that lens adapter and lens pulled towards your camera, so it's not going to pop right off. This is the system right here. Okay, I have a clip. If I'm not using it, I can take this and I can clip it onto my vest and it can just hang there, okay, if I need my hands free for any reason. And I also have a secondary loop here that I put through. I'm up doing my safety stop and I'm up 30 feet up, I don't want to be losing my camera and I have to go back down to the bottom and get it, right? This loops down and I'm holding it like this and I'm doing my safety stop. And when I surface, I have my camera still. And I also have another tether too. I have a lot of tethers. I actually have a retractable tether on my vest that I'm gonna clip onto this as well. In case I lose this and I lose this, it's still tethered onto my vest, so I won't lose my camera system. I'm very paranoid about losing things. Okay. Now I'm gonna keep going. I'm taking too long. I'll edit this as I go. Now my camera system is set up, and you're wondering what these things are for. I printed these and I made these. These are thumb screws, but they're special thumb screws, and I'll tell you why in a second. Okay. And then you'll see this. I actually designed and made this. When I'm holding on to it, before I had the two handles, I can do a stabilized photo shoot. Now I'm holding it with one hand trying to take a photo. I'm going to be not very stabilized when I'm taking a very close up, because when you're doing macro, everything has to be pretty still, your hands, to take that photo. So if I'm holding like this, because there's so much weight on this end, it's gonna teeter-totter this way, and it's gonna be hard for me to try and stabilize. So I have to think of something here. That's what this mount is for. This mount is for this. It's a I thought of this because I have on my tactical rifle, I have the fold-out handles, which gives you that stabilized hold for shooting. And I thought, why can't I incorporate the same idea? I designed this thing. It's low profile, it's very light, it's done out of, again, PET G, same printed. And you'll see what these holes are for. You'll see this hole at the end here. It's, actually I go, wait a minute. These thumb screws on this camera, they don't, when you hand tighten them, they're not super tight. You can still pivot this camera. So that's what this is. This is also a wrench for the handles here. If I want to tighten these, I just wrench it and I'll tighten these. Now I don't have to carry an Allen key around. I don't have to carry a wrench around. I will lose. What if I'm underwater? I need to tighten this. I can pop this handle out and I can do tightening with the handle underwater. I don't have to carry it in my BCD or whatever. So now these are tight. And how this works is this goes into this little mount, and that's where this comes in. This goes in here. Let me line it up here. And this just tightens up, okay? I did this because the normal thumb screws were too tiny, because I wear gloves, and I needed something big that I can easily use to screw, tighten, and loosen, right? And I designed this piece, and it's pretty strong, and it tightens very well. Once I tighten this, and the nice thing about this handle is I can fold it in, tighten it, and it stays the same profile, right? And if I need this barrel, let's say if I get up to a subject, I'm coming up to a subject, and I need this out as a stabilizer, I pull it out, tighten it, and now I have handles to stabilize much better. Okay, I can shoot and it's very still. Okay, and I can also, if I want to do video here, now that this camera's pointing this way, I want to do video, I can turn this on, I can shoot this way, just like a rifle, right? And I can shoot video this way. I can still see the screen perfectly fine. But if I don't want to shoot sideways, right, that's where this mount comes in. Remember I was telling you about this bicycle mount? I just have to loosen it. And look at this. I can spin this camera this way. I can shoot this way if I want. I can shoot video while I'm doing macro, but you can't, because the Ace Pro has such a long focus range that even when you're close, it's going to be blurry anyways, right? It doesn't really matter. But don't forget, I can shoot in increments. I can shoot in an angle. I can shoot sideways. I can even do selfie mode if I want to. I'm shooting something. If I'm shooting a macro, I can shoot myself shooting a macro. Wild, right? I can't believe I figured this. I go, I have this mount. It's 360 degrees. Why can't I use this? I incorporated that. Now it works absolutely excellent, and it's aluminum. It's metal. I don't have to worry about it breaking. It's pretty strong, and when you tighten it, there's no wobbling. There's nothing loose on this system, right? And the handle is great. I can tighten this handle. I can use it as a wrench, and I can put it back. Once I'm done and I'm surfacing, I just loosen it, pop this back, tighten it, and I have nothing sticking out. Okay. The only thing I have sticking out is basically the light system. The light system is going to be probably the worst part, because it sticks out like a sore thumb. Let me just do this. Now I've got an extender because this is not far enough. It's coming. Hopefully I'll get it next week. There's an extended joint, like an arm, that brings my, I need my light out here because when I push this out front with this bracket, the light used to be fine right at the top because you should be at the top facing down, or it should be shooting this way. I've got an extended rod on here so I can actually move that light above quite a bit to adjust to the subject and how I want my lighting. But right now I don't have it. It's supposed to be coming next week. I have my light here, turn it on, and full lighting. I can shoot this way, have my handle out if I wanted to, and I can shoot this way. I'm shooting sideways here. Let me just loosen this. I actually kind of like it this way because it keeps the profile a little bit smaller. I can always shoot this way. It's not a big deal, right? But at least I have that option to spin it around if I wanted to. Here's my system here, and I can shoot this way. And it's nice and compact. It's not very heavy. This whole system, whole total is probably about 5 pounds right here. 5 to 6 pounds, which is, you know, a lot when you're diving because now I have to compensate for my weight and my vest. That I'm not too heavy when I'm diving, right? So it makes a huge difference. Anyways, that's this part. It's going to be a video of me showing you how to do the settings on the Ace Pro for macro shooting underwater. There's some things that you need to know, and it's very important that you need to know. Okay, guys, we'll move on. It's long enough. It's going to be a long segment. Enjoy. Ciao. All right, next segment, we are going to do a close-up of the settings. So this is the trick here, guys. This is where the meat and potatoes is. I found this out by mistake, and I figured out a way to shoot the best macro shooting style that I can think of. I've done some testing. I did a whole bunch of different, I did video, I did stills, I did 36 megapixels, I did 12 megapixels, so I did HDR, blah, 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 blah. The list goes on, and this is the best way I've figured it out. Here's the pros and cons of macro with the Ace Pro here. Not like traditional cameras. When you're shooting macro mode, there's no autofocusing in these cameras, and that's a very key element for shooting macro, to get that autofocusing. Initially, can you do it with these cameras? Yes, you can, with some work. Because it doesn't have autofocusing in these cameras, you have to manually focus. And if you remember back in the photography days, that's all we did. We never had, when I started shooting FG series 35mm, we didn't have autofocus. The generation that started with autofocus is spoiled. So I'm actually used to focusing manually by, you know, moving closer or turning that focusing ring, that kind of thing. I've got an eye for that kind of thing, and you're gonna have to train yourself with that. There's another way to alleviate that, and I'll tell you how. If you're shooting stills, you have to manually focus. And with macro mode, it's the distance. It's not a focusing ring. You have to go the distance from the camera lens to the subject itself. Let's say this is a subject right here, right? And I need to focus this guy. My camera here, with that macro lens, it's a 3-inch focus range. So basically, at 3 inches, it's at its optimal focus point. Okay, so I have to be within that 3-inch mark to my subject to get that perfect focusing. Now, if you off a little bit, you could probably do post sharpening, you know, details, that kind of thing. There's software to do it, but your best bet is to get that optical focus right off the bat as best as you can, and that takes practice, guys. You know, and I still have problems with it. Some people don't have still hands. Some people don't have the glasses when they're down in underwater and they can't see as well, so on and so forth. There's so many variables. But the optimal focus for this camera with that macro lens is about right here. Okay, so I have to be this close to that subject, to the critter, whether it's a lionfish, and that's why I wanted my camera on that tray to extend further forward. The reason why it keeps, but before I had it, the camera was in parallel with my hands, so it was right here. I don't know if you guys can see. I hope this is clear. My hands are right here, and the tray is here. My camera was parallel to my fists when I'm taking a photo, and I have a trigger. Okay, and the reason why I moved it forward was because if I'm close to something that's dangerous, whether it's an eel or it's a lionfish or it's a rockfish or pufferfish or whatever that has potential hazard, I want my fingers to be as far as I can from the subject. And that's why I wear gloves a lot of times, because I do a lot of spearfishing and that kind of stuff. My hands are always close to dangerous points underwater, and that's no different than photography. When you're doing this close of, not like the day where you GoPro, you just point your GoPro at it, or your Ace Pro at it from a distance, and you're far away from danger. But when you're shooting macro, you're being very close to that subject, to those critters, right? So you have to be very careful, and that's why I push my camera forward. So if you look at my camera now with the new design with that bracket, it actually pushes my the camera forward about 3 inches, so that keeps my finger further away from danger. The trick with the Ace Pro, because there is no autofocusing like the TG6, TG7, the Sea Life, that kind of thing, so it makes taking photography, macro photography, a little bit more difficult. Can it be done? Absolutely. And you'll see at the end here the macro shots I've done out of the water macro shots, and I assume they'll be the same underwater. And I will have sufficient lighting with the external flood and photo light. With this, there's a trick. Okay, there's the best way I found to shoot macro with this camera is using clarity zoom. Okay, believe it or not, because clarity zoom is using that 8K sensor. So when you're using clarity zoom, you're getting absolutely the best, probably the best quality photo you can do, and you can do that in photo mode. Okay, only certain modes. Okay, and I'll show you how. With this camera, now here's a caveat of clarity zoom. Clarity zoom can only be accessed via display. Okay, you can go into photo mode or video, and then you have to press that button to clear. There is no hardware button to access clarity zoom. I found this out by mistake. Okay, if you're in a dive housing, you can use your screen. So how do you access that clarity zoom? Well, I don't know if this is a bug or this is normal. I actually sent a request to Insta360 to be able to, for underwater photography, to be able to access clarity zoom, whether you preset it in a custom setting or as one of the hardware shortcut buttons that you can access clarity zoom. But it's too hard because there's only 2 buttons on this thing. So how are you going to access that, right? So it'd be better to be in a preset. Well, you can kind of do that with this camera. It's interesting. I'll turn it on. So I have the M on my label on my camera. This is the macro shoot. This is strictly used for macro photography. Okay, close up. If you notice that, let's say if I switch it to 12 megapixel HDR. Now with this camera, the only time you can get clarity zoom is via the 12 megapixel. You can't get it in the 36 or the 48 megapixel. Okay, so let me switch it over to 16:9. And oh shoot, what did I do here? Oh, sorry, let me just switch it 4:3. 4:3 is the best for macro shooting. Where did it go? Oh, okay, I know where it is. It's in, I don't want to change my settings. I should probably write all this down because I did this all day. Oh, here we go, photo mode. If I do 36 megapixel, you'll notice the clarity zoom is not available anymore. Okay. In photo mode in Ace Pro, the clarity zoom, be nice to have it in 36 and 48 megapixel, because the highest megapixel the Ace Pro can shoot is 48 megapixel. And then if you want to go 36, you can do pure shot raw. You can do 16:9 on 36. If you go to 4:3, you can shoot 48 megapixels. So you're really limited with the higher megapixel. You're down to 4:3 ratio, right? And you can still shoot raw and pure shot. But as you move it down to 12 megapixel, you'll notice that when you move down to 12 megapixel, clarity zoom is available. Okay. At 12 megapixel, it's actually, you're probably saying, oh, 12 megapixel over 48. If you saw the photos at 12 megapixel that I shot, the samples, it's unbelievable. It's phenomenal. With that lens, especially, a lot of that quality comes from the lens too. Don't forget, right? But at 12 megapixel, using the clarity zoom, you're shooting 12 megapixel, but using the 8K sensor. Okay, so think about that for a second. That's why it's probably so clear, and you can activate that clarity zoom. Anyways, I'm going to switch it back to 16:9, and I'll tell you why. I have several ways of shooting this. So everything is done in this button, this shortcuts button right here. It's also the on and off button. Okay, I've got to set the first mode. I've got to set is the 12 megapixel, because that's the main screen I'm going to be shooting at when I'm doing the macro mode. Okay, this is what I found out by mistake. You'll notice, I don't know if anybody knows this. If you know that, then great. If you don't, then now you know. At 12 megapixel HDR, at the 12 megapixel with the clarity zoom, I've got to set on D-warp. I don't want ultra. I don't want that warping. The less posts I do, the better. Okay, so if I activate clarity zoom on here, through that lens, the reason why you do that through that lens is because if you don't activate clarity zoom, you'll see that the rim around the picture of that macro. You'll see a picture right here. I'll post it. And if you go clarity zoom, it blows out that rim, and you can't see that rim. Now you have an actual picture of the subject that you're close to. Okay. Here's a cool thing. Okay. Now I have clarity zoom on. Okay, I'm going to shut my camera off, and I'll put this into the dive housing. I'll use this one as an example. Okay, I'm going to use this for an example.
But I found these results on search.
My Google just went off. Did I activate my Google? I'm going to put this into my dive housing. Now I'm going diving. Okay, I'm underwater and I'm shooting. I can't access my my screen. Okay, so what if I turn on the thing and I want to activate clarity zoom? Well, here's a killer. If you turn off your camera, or if it shuts off in sleep mode and clarity zoom is enabled, it will keep it enabled. Here's a trick. Keep that enabled and put that in your quick button program. When I turn it on, you notice clarity zoom is still on. See? When I jump in the water, I turn this on. Now I'm ready to shoot. Now, the quick key right here, I'm going to cycle through to this. I've got this set to my second, because if I don't want to shoot 12 megapixel, I can go to 36 megapixel and see. I want to do some testing to see, you know, the 12 and the 36 and see and blow it up close up and pixel peep and see if there's any huge difference. There should be, because it's 36 megapixel, right? But I just put it on there as a program mode. Okay. My third option here, 1, 2, 3, it's video. I've got it on video. Remember I was saying that you have to keep your hands absolutely still because there's no autofocusing. And there's a focus point that you have to be at. And if you're not at that point, your images will come out a little bit blurry, or it won't focus properly, right? Here's where this comes in. If you find that you're having a tough time focusing, manual focusing with this camera, put it in video mode. Record and just move it around the subject until you get to a focusing point, and leave it there when you see the focusing point. Okay, or if you miss it, or if you can't see it, just move it around, and then what you do, you're gonna have to do post. I know it's a lot of work. I get it. People are probably laughing. Oh, why would you use this and not just go with it? Because I don't want to. Because I want to use my Ace Pro cameras, right? I don't want to have another big rig plus my video cameras. But yeah, so if I do, I'm gonna have to set my timer to longer so I can actually see, right? Move it around, record it, and then go into post and do a frame grab. Because don't forget, you're frame grabbing 4K. Now, unless you're using this in a professional manner, you're putting out poster size, that kind of stuff. Yeah, okay, it's probably not sufficient enough. It's still, actually 4K is still good enough for poster size print. Right, there's software that can actually change that. That can like gigapixel will take an image and just blow it up and retain its detail. Like gigapixel is phenomenal. I use it all the time. But most of the time when we shoot macro, it's for social media, it's for friends. You know, I'm not shooting National Geographic. I don't need that kind of resolution. And people who are shooting National Geographic have $10,000 rigs when they're shooting underwater photography or macro photography. We're not in that level. So this is great if you want something as an optional thing to do when you're diving. Hey, I want to get into macro. I can do it with a very simple, not as expensive system, right? That's the trick. If you have a tough time with manual focusing, use video. Use video, record it, and move it around the subject like this. Okay, it's going to get to a point where it's going to focus, right? Because you have that focusing distance. Just move around to 3 inches, back, forward, and then in post, when you look in your video, you can pull the frame that's focused, and believe it, look at my sample here. It looks amazing. And I'll show you another trick too. If you want to do that, if you have a tough time with focusing and you want to use video to do it, go into 8K and do the same thing. And you'll see a sample of a frame grab from an 8K and a 4K video. And look at the difference. The 8K is unbelievable. It's just amazing. It looks like some of the stuff that I've seen with, you know, the Olympus, the Sea Life cameras. I've seen Sea Life cameras. I know people who use them. I know people who use the Olympus. I have lots of people, divers, that use the Olympus TG6, TG7 to do macro shooting. And I show them those results, and they're like, that's really good. But anyways, that said, if you want to use the video route to frame grab, I would suggest going 8K. Frame rate doesn't really matter. 24 frame, you're pulling frames anyways. You're not using it. You can use it as a video as well, but you're pulling frames. So 24 frames per second, 30 frames, it doesn't really matter, right? With 8K. And just shoot the 8K, and again, you'll see the sample. Now, I've got a few settings on here. So my next setting I've got is going to be video. Again, why do I have two settings of video? One has clarity zoom on or off. This one has on. So you notice that when I turn my camera on, it retained the zoom, the clarity zoom. It stayed. It didn't default back to disabling it. This is something I found out by mistake. If you have a setting, a video setting, let's say if I have 4K 30, right, I have standard color, vivid color, whatever, and I activate the clarity zoom and I leave it on. I don't turn it off on the screen, right? And my camera goes to sleep or shuts off after 3 minutes, because it's set to shut off after 3 minutes, or I shut it off manually. So let's say I shut this off manually. I'm done for the day. I'm done diving. Okay, tomorrow when I go diving, I'm going to turn my camera on again, right? Look at what happens. Look at where it goes back to. You notice that? Same mode, same settings. When you do left, it's said like a natural, +1 EV. Look at the clarity zoom. Same field of view, de-warp. The clarity zoom is still on. So this is the trick. We can't activate clarity zoom when we're in the housing, but it will retain if we leave it that way. And I've had this off for days. Turn on, it's still the same. Doesn't disable until you manually disable that clarity zoom. So what you do is I created modes where I have video that doesn't have clarity zoom on. See, if I want to shoot 4K 60, I don't want clarity zoom on. I have that in the quick settings, and I have one where I want clarity. Oops, I just passed it. I wish they would let us rename these instead of custom 1, custom 2. I've set that to Insta360. Maybe we'll see that in the next firmware. I don't know. Hopefully. So I've set another video with the exact same settings, other than like a natural, the new profile. And I've got clarity zoom on. As long as you set it and don't disable that, it sits in the quick settings. Now, this solves the problem. How do I activate clarity zoom when I'm diving underwater in a dive housing? The only way you can do this is to have presets with clarity zoom on, clarity zoom off. I've even got a setting for I want to be able to shoot free mode or free video. 4K 60, free video at 45-degree horizontal lock. Okay? And I can set lots. I think you can set quite a bit. And I've got it on pure. I don't typically use pure video unless I'm in cave or wreck or whatever, right? And even pure video, I have clarity zoom on, so I can have that as well. The reason why I have clarity zoom on a lot of these settings is because it's attached to a macro lens. The clarity zoom takes away that ring that you see that I showed you a sample of. So you don't have to deal with that in post. You don't have to crop it out, and it's just less work, right? And to be able to use that 8K sensor, I think the clarity zoom is actually better. If you're shooting video and you're frame grabbing, that clarity zoom is going to be much better with the resolution, as you saw when I did a frame grab sample. Okay, the 12 megapixel is actually quite good on this. I've got 12. This is going to be my main mode that I'm shooting at. 12 megapixel, de-warp, HDR on with clarity zoom on. This gave me the best best quality, and you saw in the samples what the quality is like in this mode. 12 megapixel is actually pretty much a standard. A lot of cameras are still in 12, especially in macro, they're still shooting at 12 megapixel, right? So that said, that's a trick, and that's what I found out by mistake. So if you're ever wondering how am I going to set clarity zoom in a housing, this is how you're going to do it. And if you're shooting macro underwater, use the clarity zoom, because it is much better. I've done the comparison between a non-clarity zoom picture and a clarity zoom picture. The clarity zoom actually is a little bit crispier because it's using that 8K sensor. Anyways, that's that. Now, that's my macro shooter right there. I'm gonna pop this out. Hope you guys can see it. I hope it's clear. I'm shooting on my Action A4 because I need both these cameras. All right, that said, this is the video shooter. Again, same thing. I've got my setting. I can't touch this screen. So if I'm underwater and this is just this video, I'm not shooting stills with this. This is strictly video. This is going to be on the left side of my tray, the one that's going to pivot, that rotates. And again, I've set mine to video. My first video is going to be, I always shoot 4K 60 in ultra mode. It's my standard for video. Okay. Sometimes I'll shoot in D-warp or just or action mode, but I prefer ultra. That I don't get too much warping. As much warping as action. You get a wider field of view, but honestly, just move your camera. And then the next mode is going to be 4K 60 action mode. So I have two right back to back. So if I want to move one, I just have to hit that side button. I can start recording, right? Now I can't use the pause function. You can't, because you do that you can't program in, unfortunately. It'd be nice if you could to use pause. And then my third one is going to be the AK-24. Okay, so again, this is a strictly video shooter. Okay, and custom 2 is going to be 4K 60 in action. Why is this one? This one's the same. Oh, I think this is supposed to have clarity zoom on. Did I not activate clarity zoom? That's why I didn't activate. So this one is the same, but I didn't activate clarity zoom. I'll put it on right now. There you go. So that's set to go. So that's going to be changed now. So if I go to C1, it goes back to 8K. If I go to C2, I should see that clarity zoom on. See? It stays on. And it stays on until you activate it off, which is really cool. I hope they don't change that, because that would just kill macro photography with this. The tricks and tips, you would have to set it and leave it on all the time and go down, but you don't want it to, because it'll time out, right? And of course, I have pure video, and I will have free video, and my last option is photo, and it's going to shoot at 30. I should switch that to 48 actually. But the only thing is you only 4x3 at 48, right? Let's do 36. So I'm going to shoot at 36 with 16:9. I'd rather have the 16:9, right? So this is my video shooter, pretty straightforward, and I could just swap it. And this is going to be the main shooter right here. This is more simplified, whereas the macros is a bit more complex. You just have to remember your quick settings with the macro shooter. And I think I've gotten used to it. I took a little time for me to kind of sketch out what I want, what I'm going to shoot when I'm underwater, what I'm going to shoot first, and what options do I want. If I want to go free video, if I want to go pure video, if I want to go 8K, it's right there. It's 2 buttons away, and I can start shooting 8K. Okay. That's that, guys. That's this part. This is the tip and trick for shooting underwater macro with the Ace Pro. Anyways, guys, I hope this helps. These are the rings here. Very close. I can pretty much size up. There's only, I think, 4 or 5 third-party housings made for the Ace Pro. I've already covered 2 in terms of design with the square. It's not that hard for me to do this. Not a big deal. The thread will remain the same. This is a 62mm thread. I just labeled it the A magazine one, and then this will be the Telesin one. I marked the OEM one as well. So anyways, guys, any questions, drop me a comment down below. Enjoy. Have a good one. Have a great weekend. Respect. Ciao.